great to see you all. We're going to be spending some quality time together. My name is David Walk, and by statute, I will have the shortest time in my history of convening or chairing a meeting. It should be just a handful of minutes. And I wanted to say that these Keep Smiling magnets are yours. I think we'll need those throughout this process. Those are in Castleton Green from the time I was there. Actually, it's Vermont Green for our purposes, okay? So we'll keep smiling. So my only role is to welcome you, I just did, and to entertain nominations now in order for co-chairs for the task force. We'll start with the House member. May I have nominations for the House co-chair?
I'd like to nominate Rep. Edie Granning.
I'll second.
Edie Granning is nominated and seconded. Any further nominations for the House co-chair? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Congratulations. May I have nominations for the Senate co-chair?
Thank you. I nominate Senator Martine Gulick.
Martine Gulick is nominated. Are there any further nominations for Senate co-chair?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further nominations? If not, the nominations are closed. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. We have our two co-chairs. And since I was in the Senate 37 years ago, it never was this smooth. This is great. So, the meeting is yours.
Thank you very much. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your confidence in us. This is not going to be an easy thing for us to do in a very short amount of time. And so we're going to do our best to keep to the agenda, to keep our meetings really tight, and to get all the information that we need to make really good plans and suggestions to the legislative body for them to continue the work. So.
Yes, agreed. Thank you, Dave Walk, for that introduction. Thank you for the magnets. That is a great way to set a positive tone for our group, and it's much appreciated. I would say that we should probably go ahead and vote on the agenda. First order of business, if everyone is okay with this agenda for today, then we can go ahead and approve it. I do think that some of the time frames might be a little bit elastic. We might need a few more minutes here and there, or a few fewer minutes in certain areas, if folks are okay with that, especially since it's our first meeting. But if folks are okay, we can go ahead and approve the agenda. Yeah, does anyone want to make a, yes? By the way, in terms of norms, we thought it would be okay to just use first names. Is everyone all right with that? Great. Rebecca.
Just two questions. One, does it make sense to, do we need to adopt rules for governing? Are we going with Robert's rules? Yeah. And in addition, I wondered about the timing, the focus on the purpose of the task force, and the session on goals, what our goals are, what the work is that we're trying to do, compared to the education data. I would personally prefer to push that data till later when we've had time as a body to weigh in on what we're doing. It wasn't just clear to me what that is. It's a 20-minute period. Are we presenting, or are we talking about?
I think the education data is going to be an opportunity for us to just state what we think we need in the future. What kind of information do we need, and so on. So yeah, it's a good question. Yes, and we will, once we finalize the agenda, I thought we could quickly adopt Robert's rules and maybe talk very briefly about norms for our group. Okay, super. Someone want to make an emotion?
That we approve the agenda.
Great.
I'll second.
Great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Awesome. And you want to do?
Yeah. So why don't we do introductions first? We can go around the table, and then we can, I guess, well, we already mentioned Robert. Everybody's good with Robert's rules. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Love them.
And then just, ask, or make sure you get some kind of acknowledgement from one of the chairs before you speak, so that we don't have people speaking over you. Dave, do you want to start introductions?
Sure. I'm Dave Walk. I actually don't know most of you, so that's a wonderful thing for me to do. I've had over 50 years in public service, and currently I'm a Rutland County Assistant Judge, something different for me, and I've enjoyed it immensely. I've worked as a guidance counselor, teacher, principal, superintendent, Vermont Commissioner of Education, President of Castleton, and served in the State Senate, and now I'm a judge, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm delighted to be with others.
Okay. Scott Beck, 10 years in the House, finished my first year in the Senate, been an educator for 29 years, and from Calvin County.
Hi, I'm Chris Locarno. I am a former Finance and Operations Director for Washington South, Orange North, and Central Vermont Supervisory Union. I took a sabbatical in December. I did that for about almost 30 years. I took a sabbatical in December, and now I'm running a nonprofit in Central Vermont, born and raised in Barrie. I will probably die here, and I am honored to be part of this group, so thank you.
Beth Quimby from Linden, Vermont. I was a middle school math teacher in Barton for 33 years, retiring 2 years ago. I was appointed to the House in March 24. And what else you need? Good morning, Jen Botso-Jorns, and I've served many different roles in schools in Vermont and elsewhere. I've also worked in both public and independent schools as principal, math teacher, Latin teacher, and superintendent, and I currently have about 15 chickens and about 120 sheep and a couple of cows, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm honored to be serving in this role.
Hi, I'm Jay Adams. I've been a superintendent for 18 years, been in education for 28, and I've been a superintendent in Pennsylvania, and actually not currently, today's my last day as superintendent for SU 55, which includes Norwich, Vermont, and also Hanover, New Hampshire. And I live in Stratford, Vermont, and I see the work that this task force is going to be doing is critical, and I'm really, really, I feel privileged to be a part of this team and look forward to working with you.
Rebecca Holcomb. My children graduated from the schools in SU 55, so I'm a proud graduate of those. I have been, as my children said, in education for 100 years. So they really like me to move on. And I am currently a state representative. I've been a teacher, I've been a school leader, I've been a building level leader, and I've been a district leader, and I was Secretary of Education in Vermont. And I represent towns that are represented here in the room today. So thank you for coming.
Good morning, everybody. Wendy Harrison. I represent the Wyndham District. I live in Brattleboro. My background is in local government, similar but not the same, obviously, as education. I've been a town manager in Vermont, in Bellows Falls, in Rockingham, and then I was interim in Winooski and Vernon, and so it was a good, just general area around the state. I am a product of public schools. My kids have been educated in public schools. I understand that there is a place for private independent schools. Very happy to, or not happy isn't the right word because it's going to be a lot of work, but this will be a really impactful process and result if we do our work well. It seems like a great group, and I look forward to it. It's going to be difficult, but we can do it. So, thank you.
I'm Kim Gleason, and I live in Grand Isle. I sit here in this space with y'all as a representative of a former school board member, so recovering school board member, if you will. We raised our 4 kids in Essex. I was on the school board there for almost 15 years in Essex town at EWSD. And I was on the Vermont School Board Association board for 10 years. And on the State Board of Ed for 6 years that just wrapped up in February. I am grateful and honored to sit here and bring governance voice and community engagement voice that is often a pretty unique space for school board members. So thanks for letting me join you all in this work. And I too am hopeful, and I love the keep smiling. Let's do that.
I'm Edie Granning. I represent Jericho and Underhill. I currently serve as the Vice Chair of the Commerce and Economic Development Committee in the House. I'm also the Chair of the Mount Mansfield School Board. I've been on the school board for about a dozen years and been Chair since the week before everything shut down for COVID. So it's been an interesting time, and I'm really excited to be here with this wealth of knowledge. Thank you all for being willing to serve.
Thank you. I'm Senator Martine LaRoque-Gulick. I live in Chittenden County and represent Chittenden Central. I am a former high school teacher. I taught in a funny Vermonty way. When I taught at Essex High School, Kim was the chair of the school board there. So small world. But I currently in the Senate serve as Vice Chair of Health and Welfare, and I'm also on the Finance Committee with Senator Beck. And I'm really also honored and grateful to be here and look forward to working with you all to crack this nut. This is going to be hard work, and hopefully we'll come out on the other end with some really positive, outlooks for the future here in Vermont. So thank you.
We have a lot of support from the administration for this group. I don't know if you all wouldn't mind standing up and introducing yourselves.
I'm Sarah Clark. I'm the Secretary of Administration, and we were tasked, amongst other colleagues, with supporting this committee.
I'm Chrissy Gilhooly. I work with Sarah as Secretary of Administration, and I'm happy to support you guys in any way that I can.
And we have Maud. I'm Monica Evans. I work for TAX, and I'm here to support Chrissy and Sarah.
I'm Denise Riley Hughes. I'm the Secretary for the Agency of Digital Services, I'm the state CIO, and we are tasked with supporting the technology needs of the community.
Hi, good morning. I'm Zoe Saunders. I'm the Secretary of Education.
Hi, I'm John Adams, Director of the Center for Geographic Information.
And I'm Dylan Broderick, and I also work with John at BCGF.
Thank you, everybody. Beth, would you take us through our charge, please?
Beth St. James. I am a member of the Office of Legislative Counsel. I am the Education Policy Attorney. I like saying that because I used to be education, which meant finance as well. Now I don't need to know anything about the foundation formula. What do you want from me?
If you would take us through with a quick overview of the full Act 73,
Sure.
but more importantly, what is our job on this task force? That would be really helpful.
Okay, so I hope that everyone at this table is familiar with Act 73 from the 2025 session, which it contains your enabling legislation. Your enabling legislation is a small part of this very large piece of law. So I'm going to do a very quick high-level summary, which is if I leave something out or if I only say half of what you were expecting me to say about a subject, it is not meant to reflect, or I should say, for those of you who are not familiar, as a member of the Office of Legislative Counsel, my office is nonpartisan. We represent all of the General Assembly, and so if I am characterizing something in a way that you haven't expected or I have left something off, it is simply a matter of time. I am not your focus today. So I'm going to try and summarize Act 73 as quickly as I can to put into context where you all fit in there. So Act 73 started with some intent language that I do think is important for you all to understand because it fits into your charge. And that is in the 2026 legislative session. It is the General Assembly's intent to enact new, larger school districts. That's where you all come in. Act 73 refocused the charge of the commission on the future of public education. It created your group, the School District Redistricting Task Force. It also created a sister group, the School District Voting Ward Working Group, which is not slated to get going until later in 2025, and their work is largely dependent on where you are in your work. And I'm happy to answer questions about why that is if you have them. Act 73 set class size minimums that won't take effect until 2026. That would be for both public schools and approved independent schools, if those approved independent schools want to be able to accept public tuition. If the independent school does not want to be able to accept public tuition, you don't have to follow the class size minimums. It required the State Board of Education to do a significant amount of work, updating the education quality standards to reflect class size minimums and new statewide graduation requirements that would be based on or taken into consideration recommendations from the Agency of Education related to those statewide graduation requirements. It also requires the State Board of Education to do essentially a sunset review of all of their rules. So all the rules that are governing our education system, the State Board should be looking at those, figuring out what needs to be updated, maybe what needs to be sunset, and then reporting back to the General Assembly with a plan for how to accomplish all that work. This act also requires a significant work from AOE. So one, kind of the first big bucket of work there is to create a statewide school calendar that would not take effect until the 28-29 school year. The agency should be recommending statewide graduation requirements to the State Board of Education to take those into consideration when they're updating the Education Quality Standards Rules Series. And the Agency of Education is required to report back to the General Assembly on several topics, including the state of special education delivery and funding. Act 73 creates the State Aid for School Construction Program. As some of you may know, the State Aid for School Construction Program has been paused essentially since 2007, meaning there's no money flowing other than some emergency funds. Act 73 kind of revamps the program, creates new legislation, a new program to be housed at AOE and administered by AOE with advice from the State Aid for School Construction Advisory Board, which should be getting going soon. Act 73 also requires approved independent schools to meet certain criteria in order to be eligible to receive public tuition, including being located in a non-operating district or supervisory union with non-operating districts and complying with class size minimums. One of the bigger pieces of Act 73 is creating a foundation formula for our school funding system that would contingently take effect in fiscal year 28. I'm just going to leave it at that because we could spend days on what that actually means. But part of the contingency, or one of the contingencies for the foundation formula taking effect, is the legislature enacting new school districts, and those new school districts actually being operations. Let's see. Act 73 requires the Agency of Education to create a 3-year strategic plan for the delivery of special education services. And then there was a $2.8 million appropriation to the Agency of Education for to support the education transformation work, along with 5 positions, and then an additional 1 position to support the 3-year strategic plan for special education delivery. Let's see. As part of the foundation formula, the payment that would be going to school districts is called the Educational Opportunity Payment in Act 73. That is a term that you should be familiar with. Along with the term of supplemental district spending, which is an amount that school districts are allowed to raise beyond their educational opportunity payment. And that's as detailed as I'm going to get today. And then we're getting way into the weeds of the tax pieces, which I know nothing about other than reading and sitting and watching the testimony along with you all, because I am not the legislature's tax attorney. So let's see. There were several changes to the property tax system to support the foundation formula. Again, a lot of that is contingently effective based on several things. One of the big contingencies for the foundation formula and the corresponding tax changes is a report back from a consultant regarding the foundation formula, and the legislature being able to receive that information and consider it and make any updates to the foundation formula in this interim period between Act 73's passage and when you're hoping that new school districts are operational. Again, contingently effective, Act 73 creates a new property tax classification system for non-homestead residential properties that will be repealed on July 1, 2028 if the General Assembly does not create a new tax rate multiplier for tax classifications before that date. And it tasks the Department of Taxes to study the implementation of new tax classifications. And then, again, contingently effective for January 1, 2029, Act 73 creates regional assessment districts for the purpose of full reappraisal of grand list properties in a designated region, which will replace our current system of having individual municipalities responsible for full reappraisals. There's so much more in Act 73, but that is a broad, about half of it when I say, a half to a third when I say creates the foundation formula, is all of the legal changes that needed to go into that, whether they're on education policy or the tax side of things. So that is Act 73 at an extremely high level. Would you like me to pivot to your work? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just the focus of that is that, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been getting an awful lot of questions about the work that's going to be happening here. And to understand that Act 73 is really far-reaching, and our role is a tiny piece of it. And so a lot of things are contingent on it, but I think that it's important for everyone here to understand, you know, what our real job is and what other people may think our job is, then we have to really be able to walk that line. So, any questions? Okay.
You should have on your website and provided to you a document entitled Act 73 School Districting Task Force Overview. I was able to pull it up from your website this morning. I'm looking at it right now. This is actually a document that I put together. It is a one-pager on the duties of this task force, and it is literally a cut and paste job because the language that was passed in Act 73 is very specific. And so from my perspective, trying to summarize or restate some of the enabling language is not the right way to do it because it wouldn't be accurate. So I think, and you don't have to care what I think, but I think the best way to consider your charge is really just to look at the enabling legislation. It is very specific. It is detailed. And I think that's the best way to do it. So if you are able to pull that up or have it in front of you, I'm just going to kind of go over it.
It is on the screen, but it's a little hard to read.
Okay.
Bigger for you.
And this is, like I said, the purpose and some of the language, I've taken out some kind of superfluous words, but most of this is literally cut and pasted from my Word document that became Act 73. So generally speaking, what is your charge? Well, Act 73 says it is to recommend new school district boundaries and configurations to the General Assembly. You are required to propose not more than 3 options for new school district boundaries. At least one boundary proposal is required to, and there's 3 things here, consider the use of supervisory unions and supervisory districts, allow for the continuation of a tuitioning system that provides continued access to independent schools that have served geographic areas that do not operate public schools for the grades served by the independent schools. And 3, to the extent practical, not separate geographic areas that contain non-operating school districts as those districts exist or existed at this point on July 1, 2025. That's taken right from the Act. Proposed new school districts or supervisory unions and supervisory districts shall have, to the extent practical, that is going to be a term that you see a lot in here, an average daily membership of not fewer than approximately 4,000 students and not more than 8,000 pre-K through grade 12 students. So this says your goal, to the extent practical, is for average daily membership to be approximately 4,000 to 8,000 students, pre-K through 12. Proposed new school districts or supervisory unions and supervisory districts shall also be, to the greatest extent possible, grand list and pupil count balanced, demographically equitable, logistically feasible, and create the least amount of disruption to students as possible. Again, that's taken directly from your enabling legislation. And then we get into the list of things for you all to consider. In creating the proposed districts, the task force shall consider the following with the goal of increasing equitable access to educational opportunity for all students. So these are things you should be considering. The first two items we talked about when we were talking about ADM and what the grand list and pupil count balance, those were things that the school districts should have. These are items, topics, concepts that you should be considering in creating the school districts, your recommendations. So you should be considering current school district and town boundaries and other historic and current community connections, including access to regional services for students, such as designated agencies. You should be considering geographic barriers, including mountains and rivers. My colleagues in the GovOps portfolios would love that, because there's literally common law and old rules about when you're creating voting boards or representation in the General Assembly, mountains and rivers come into play there. Population distribution, location, capacity, and the facility condition index score of current school buildings, transportation and employment patterns and practices, grand list values accounting for the homestead exemption and current education spending, student demographics, the debt, liabilities, and assets of current school districts, staffing levels and salary scales, opportunities to support local elementary schools, central middle schools, and regional high schools with least disruption to students, access to career and technical education for all eligible students, the maximization of cost efficiencies, the location of schools and CTE centers themselves, and my favorite, anything else you want to consider. That's a lot. That is what the law says, and this is session law, so it drives me insane when I hear you all refer to it as statutory language, but you're not lawyers, so I'll give it to you. I like to call it your enabling legislation. But this is the law. This is what you are required to be considering, or what your proposal is required to include. You are also required to hold not fewer than 2 public hearings to receive public feedback regarding school district consolidation and proposed boundaries, working closely with the Commission on the Future of Public Education's public engagement process to maximize public input. That's the only piece where you are required to work in tandem with the Commission on the Future of Public Education, is that public engagement process, because they have a public engagement consultant and they have a whole process. And so why not, let's not reinvent the wheel, let's see if we can maximize some of your time by using some of that expertise. There's a whole separate section, and I don't see the link. There was a hot link in this document, but it looks like it's gone. But you do have a link to your enabling legislation. There's whole separate sections or subsections and subdivisions within Section 3 of Act 73, which is your enabling legislation, regarding your I'm clearly in summer mode. Your deliverables, thank you, which is a report and maps. But the report and the maps also have some requirements that go along with it, and they didn't fit on one page, so I didn't put them on there. So just know that as you are getting closer to your deliverables, finalizing what that looks like, your enabling legislation has some specifics of what that report needs to include and what the maps need to have on them. And it's due on or before December 1st, 2025 to the General Assembly. And I have given you a cheat sheet. It's pages 22 and 23 of Act 73 is where you'll see that information.
Does anybody else have questions for that?
If you could go back to the sheet so people can refer. I was wondering, as the attorney who was present when this enabling session law was being drafted, could you clarify what the intent was of F and L? And then I have a question about 3 as well.
F, grand list values.
What were they, what was the logic or thinking there? What do they actually mean in that language when they say account for?
Accounting for homestead exemption. Again, I'm not the tax attorney. My understanding is grand list values are one thing, and then there is a homestead exemption that perhaps makes that grand list value less than what it looks like, just flat.
Using the new homestead?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, for whatever is going to be in, yes,
future.
yes,
Okay.
yep. And so instead of just looking at grand list values, you should be factoring in what you're actually raising money on.
And L? What does it mean to maximize efficiency?
I think that is something you all will need to debate and decide for yourselves.
And may I continue? One on 3, I was very pleased to note that the Commission on Public Education is going to help with public engagement, but I'm trying to figure out, this group was given a total of 8 meetings. One of them is today, so we're down to 7. Are 2 of the meetings that we have, of the remaining 7, are those dedicated to public engagement, or can we expand our public engagement by using the meetings of the Public Education Commission? I'm just trying to figure out how the notion that we are going to redraw the map of Vermont in 5 meetings is kind of stupendous. And so I'm just wondering what the opportunities are for broadening public engagement given these constraints.
I'm going to give you a very lawyerly answer. And it's actually not that lawyerly, it's just reading the black and white law. You are not limited to 8 meetings. You are limited to 8 meetings for per diem and reimbursement expenses.
Okay.
Sometimes when I draft legislation, it says you can hold no more than. That's not what Act 73 says. What that means to you all is for you all to figure out.
So we can meet more, we just don't get paid for it.
I would say that within Act 73, that is a legal possibility.
Thank you.
Can Sarah chime in briefly on that? Did you want to say something, Sarah?
Well, I think that, I feel like I'm at a legislative committee.
You can sit.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want, are you done with me? Hey, you want?
I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe just to Beth's point, and I can talk a little bit about the appropriations that are in the bill. And so I think there's $10,000 appropriated to the General Assembly for the per diems and associated expenses, $10,000 to the Secretary of Administration for the non-legislative members' per diems and expenses, as well as $50,000 to the Secretary of Administration for 1 or more facilitation contracts, I think, as well as other needs that the task force may have. And then there is $100,000 if needed to the Agency of Digital Services for mapping support.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's helpful.
And then, so as Act 73 struck the work of the commission on the vision for public education, does that live anywhere that we can tell now other than statute being a requirement of the state board of ed?
Does the vision itself live anywhere? You are correct that the state
work
board.
to establish that. Or inform that, I should say, because in statute, it's state board of ed.
I believe somewhere buried on the state board, actually not buried, I believe on the State Board of Education's website, there is a vision statement.
Okay.
I'm literally pulling it up right now. It is dated 2018.
And I think there's a statutory requirement that it be revised
Every-
every 5, I think, 3 or 5.
Let's see.
Vision or strategic plan?
It is a strategic vision, I think.
Okay.
Right, if I'm remembering correctly, I might have that wrong. I guess my question is in the vein of that body of work having been assigned to the commission previously feels important for us to be pointing towards something. And I think in the absence of that, that is just something for us to be considering, how it impacts the work we're doing, and whether or not we point that responsibility back to where it lives in statute. And I know the state board is charged with a lot of things in this law, so more than anything, a recognition of a bit of a concern that I hold in thinking from a governance standpoint. You build policy around mission and vision, and then you govern towards policy and hold a system accountable to that. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed it someplace else, that it was reinvigorated elsewhere.
You are correct. 16 VSA 164. It's a relatively short phrase in the state board's general powers and duties statute that requires the state board to establish and regularly update a long-term strategic vision for the delivery of educational services in Vermont. That's it.
And 2018 was the last time.
I can't speak to any of the work that the State Board of Education does, or even if this is a valid or accurate. This is just what's on the website. As a member of the public, this is what I pulled up.
And as a former member of the State Board of Ed, it was work that we were doing when I first arrived in 2019, and then it halted as that chair went off the board and new chairs came on through the work. So in my 6 years, it was just the first couple of months that we were looking at that. So I'm not sure about the accuracy or how that is driving or accounting for the work of education in the state of Vermont.
Other questions for, just in case, anybody, other questions for Beth? Okay, Rebecca?
First of all, thank you so much. It's so helpful to have responsibilities and requirements. I want to push a little bit on what we can do beyond that. One of the concerns I have is there's an emphasis in this bill on cost maximization and efficiency maximization, and I think there's an embedded assumption that bigger districts are more effective. What I'm worried about is you can merge and achieve no efficiencies if certain policies don't take place, and I'm wondering, this bill is silent on cost drivers, what is actually driving increase in cost. Does this, in the context of doing math, how do we reconcile that? Because we actually can't touch efficiencies in this group.
I'm not sure that I can answer that. Part of my, I am not, the enabling legislation does not have me staffing you all. And the additional complication is I am a lawyer and I have some ethical obligations. I'm only representing certain of you here, and so I can't give this group legal advice, unfortunately. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that question.
It's fine, you answered it.
And we can talk about that in the goals piece.
Which is right about now, 9:10. We are on time. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, we can move on. This is great. So 9:10, we were hoping to talk about goals for the task force I think, you know, it's easy to jump to a technical fix on this and just throw together a variety of maps and say, okay, we've done the work. Before we jump to a technical fix, it seems really critical that we as a body talk about what problem we're trying to solve, why are we here? You know, what are we doing? What are our goals for this group? So if folks are willing, I thought it would be we thought it'd be a great opportunity to go around the room and really talk about what is the problem or what are the problems that we're trying to solve. That is sort of like at the real heart of all of this work. Because obviously there's a problem because we're trying to make changes. What are the changes for? What are we trying to fix? So this is an opportunity for folks to talk, for folks to share what they've been thinking about prior to coming to this meeting today. And it would be great to maybe get it in writing on a piece of paper. I see that we have some materials down there. Because some of us might have some overlap, so we can just sort of, when we want to repeat ourselves with each other, we make a check by that particular item. Does that sound good? Is everyone game for that interesting conversation? Great. Who would like to, could someone possibly take notes on the paper for us? Is anyone willing to do that? Rebecca, would you be willing to do that? Thank you. And who would like to start us off? So the question is, what problem are we trying to solve? Who's going to be brave and jump in?
Sure. Just one for now. But I'm hoping that whatever is recommended by this group includes serious consideration of creating more and better educational opportunities for all Vermont students, regardless of their zip code. Hoping that this is an opportunity, so this is our moment, right? This is our moment to create significant change that will benefit our children, in my case, my grandchildren, in providing more and better, greater opportunities in all schools, not just a few. So that's just a starting point for me. I have others, but I'll share the floor with others.
Designing a governance system that makes sense, achieves excellence in all areas of the state, and provides all children with best opportunity and options.
You don't have to go in a circle. I think people can jump in.
Can you tell me, you said 3 things. Of those 3 things, what's not captured here? Governance?
Excellence.
If I am not capturing what you're saying, please let me know.
Jay, go ahead.
Thanks. And I agree with all of those, but we have to also consider declining enrollment and increasing costs.
I see reducing the upheaval and chaos that is constantly happening in the education field for families, staff, communities. I don't know what's going to happen next.
Now, is that specifically around budgets or just general?
Budget has a lot to do with it, but I would say it's around more than that. It's even around curriculum changing every time you turn around. Inconsistency, you don't have statewide graduation requirements. There's a lot of constant change that is very stressful for teachers and students and administration.
I'll go. Of course, I agree with David and Scott, but I mean, I think item J on the overview really hits my goal here. Of course, we want to see more opportunities, but I'd like to see. I think the local schools are paramount to keeping Vermont flourishing. So, that's what I'm here to help.
I agree. J was actually my favorite one. So local elementary schools, central middle schools, and regional high schools. I was glad that was in there, and it's more general than some of the others.
I agree.
But I think it's helpful. And then I have a specific one and a general one. So the specific one is CTEs, career and technical education. We've been talking about, I know we've been talking about all this stuff for more than just a couple of years, but a couple of years ago there was a study to try to coordinate better, and I don't think that came to fruition. So I think that's a real issue that we need to work on, to have, because CTE education itself is very different in different parts of the state. And it's not coordinated well either financially or just operationally with the schools. And then, so that's the specific one, but then the general one is there are so many great things about our schools, and they're so different from each other. I just want to make sure we don't mess up. We don't hurt what is working well. And so we're very deliberate.
Yeah. If I may, as chair, if you don't mind, the word equity is something that came up a lot when we were having these conversations with Secretary Saunders and folks in the legislature. And what is equity? I think we throw the word around a lot, but what does it actually mean? And I think it's important to identify that not every student requires exactly the same thing, and not every student requires exactly the same amount of resources or the same kind of resources. So providing equity so that when we say all students, even those that are in situations that make learning difficult, whether it's because they don't have enough food to eat, or they have no home, they're living in poverty, they're living in a really rural area, and their school can't provide them all the opportunities that they need. Really focusing on equity as a guiding principle of our work.
For me, it's data-driven decision-making. We all have a feeling about what things should be, but I really would love to be able to take best practices. We're not the only people who have ever done this before, and have good data helping us make these decisions, because I don't know that that's always the case when we make these decisions.
I just piggyback on something else that's been said. So I've been thinking that 25 years ago when I was commissioner, there were somewhere around 110,000 students, maybe 115. Now there are 80. Well, we know why it's occurred. But what are the drivers? Why are our costs per student so high? Why are we second in the country in per pupil spending? What are the real drivers there? And how can we provide taxpayer relief at the same time that we're looking at those drivers and expanding opportunities for our children at the same time? That's the key thing. What are the drivers of these costs? Why are we second in the country for people spending when our enrollments have declined in 25 years by 30,000 students? Why? And how can we fix that?
How are we doing for time? Okay, great, still have time. You haven't gone.
Kim has her hand up.
Oh, Kim, sorry.
I hope that our work will take into consideration and center and focus on the journey of the student, pre-K-12. And then as we are thinking about how we align our governance structure, really support that journey and align our resources and our community assets to that goal. We should not lose sight of that or have that not come into our language and narrative in this work. It's really important.
All of this, and I am a firm believer in data, research-based responses to information, and then also understanding the people in the field, because this is a big state and we might not know that river or mountain or road that separates some place from another, and there's a lot of people out there who do know that, independent of the GIS mapping.
Rebecca, did you want to add?
I have one, but I don't want to cut off other people.
See any hands?
I hope we can also talk about what's practical and achievable and not pie in the sky. I mean, we have no construction aid, and in this bill, the money that was going to go to construction aid has been rediverted to tax relief. So we're pretty much constrained in some ways by our footprint. And we also have a pretty significant amount of chaos at the federal level. A significant number of the positions of the agency are federally funded. We don't have a statewide information system for students. We don't have a statewide finance system. We don't have a calendar, despite the fact that one was requested in 22. It should have been due in 24 for a recommendation. We have a bunch of unimplemented education laws already, and now we're biting on the biggest governance reform in 100 and something years. And I want to make sure that we are being ambitious to think about the needs of kids. I love what you said, but also doing it with an eye to what we're actually capable of doing, because it's pretty clear we are not capable of doing what we already have on our plate. So we need to think about that.
I don't want to acknowledge constraints or something like that. Wonderful. So there's so much we can tease out from all of these great points that folks have made. If we could, I know we don't have a lot of time, and this is like meaty stuff, but talking about goals, right? Taking these big ideas, what problems we're trying to solve, and think about what are our goals for these 8 meetings, 6 meetings, or TBD. Maybe we'll have more, who knows? But it's still going to be a finite amount of meetings. What are our goals? What do we hope to achieve? Sort of taking this and going one step further. Does anyone have any thoughts on specific goals? And some of these are framed as goals, so, which is great, but yes.
Can I say a clarifying question?
Sure.
Are you trying to get at what kinds of criteria we might use to make decisions? When you talk about this, what do you mean you talk about goals?
No, we're not
We're trying to
talking about
accomplish.
data yet. Yeah, just what are we trying to accomplish? I mean, other than we know that we need to create no more than 3 maps, right? So that is a goal. I think a goal, from what I heard David say, would be to identify cost drivers. That's going to be important.
I would love to identify best practices. I think we can build on what we're doing well.
Best practices in our schools or in our system?
In our governance system, yeah, what's working well in the state. We do things so differently everywhere. So where is it going well? What does well mean?
You could say, how do we define well?
Right, good question.
Yeah.
I think to expand on that idea, and I don't think it's distinct necessarily, Rebecca, but I think what we read always is the horror stories of schools closing. And I think what we maybe haven't highlighted as well as a state is successes that have come of mergers, for instance, and where districts collectively have been able to do maybe more than they might have done before. I think that story seems not to be shared, and maybe that is part of what we were speaking about in best practices, where it's even the examples of what has come of some of the mergers that has offered additional opportunities towards the better opportunities for all students in all schools, or has been able to focus a district's resources on the full journey of a student pre-K-12 in a cohesive manner. I think that is maybe something we didn't catch on the first round, Rebecca, the better opportunities for all students, but I was pretty intentional about the pre-K-12 journey. So where we are public-private partnerships in that, there needs to be a cohesion. When we are individual districts covering less than the pre-K-12 experience, I think there needs to be by design or somehow considered how is that going to accommodate a cohesion in that experience for students.
So can I just ask you a question? So that would be districts that are just like sixth, so
Yeah.
sixth grade, making sure that that works.
The continuum that when the curriculum is covering the full pre-K-12 experience, it's a different journey for the student and the experience of continuous improvement over those full scope of years for students. And the preparedness and the data we have in terms of how students are prepared when they arrive at high schools, for instance, just in our experience in Essex, Westford merged, Essex Town had its own 1,200 kid pre-K 8, and all of our kids went to Union High School at Essex High School, and we still did not have that continuum. We were separate supervisory districts, and that high school was in NSU. So I would invite the students back at the end of their 9th grade year to share what had worked really well for them and what they wish they had known. That's pretty anecdotal, and I would really ask that it be students that have had a varied experiences in their first year, not all the kids who had the best experience. But again, that is not a systems design solution to the journey of the pre-K-12. That became dramatically different when we were a merged pre-K-12, and that became a skilled leadership team thinking about the entire continuum at that time.
Okay,
So,
thank you, that's really helpful.
I mean, I'm kind of curious about how we're going to kind of wed the cost drivers with item L maximizing cost efficiencies. And I'm also curious what we're going to define as success. Is it per pupil spending? Is it more opportunities? Is it both? And that's an open-ended question, I get that, but that is what I'm saying here right now.
Right, is it outcomes, is it scores?
That's exactly right, Wendy. I mean, what is, I don't.
Hopefully it would be
I
a
think
grouping
both, yeah,
of
I think it's
items.
both, but I'm curious to see what others think.
and how do we know? Are we capturing that now? How do we know? I think is what are the indicators we're looking for that would help inform that ongoing accountability.
I guess my goal is, going back to what you said, I don't want to get over our skis and beyond what our given task is. And a lot of this conversation, even though it's important, is not what our given task is in the agency. So staying practical, focused on what we need to do as our task. A lot of that's very important, necessary, but it's not what specifically we've been given to do.
I mean, our goal is to put together a series of maps that are actually implementable and passable by the legislature with a lot of modification.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Senator Beck, because I'm not in the legislature, could you say more about that, what you meant by that last piece?
Yeah, well, we're just issuing a report with some maps, right? And then it's gonna go in front of, well, it starts with 100, in the House, with 150 people are gonna, and then it comes to the Senate and 30 people will. So we're making a recommendation here. We're not imposing anything on the state of Vermont.
Understood. I'm just thinking we'll have hopefully the opportunity to work together.
Oh, yeah, no, but we need to be, we are issuing a report, is what we're doing. We're not enacting legislation that's gonna go to the governor's desk or anything like that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to Beth's point, coming up with the maps, that is the end game. But all of this is important when we're thinking about those maps. Because if our goal is, equity, maybe, no one's really said bending the cost curve yet, or bending the spending curve. How do we achieve that? Like which map will do that, right? Where's that magical map that will solve that problem? I think that's why this is important work. And we don't even know if consolidation does save money. That's one of the things that we need to look at, because we keep hearing that, when we put together these maps, we should be looking at consolidating, but is it actually going to save money? And if not, what's the point other than hopefully delivering more opportunity to students? So these are the tricky conversations that we need to be having. So one more, okay, Jay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to take all this in and be really positive and keep smiling. Having led a district through a pretty decent-sized urban district with 13,000 students through a pretty serious consolidation where we ultimately ended up closing 5 schools, eliminated 300 teaching positions, cut central office in half. We saved money by consolidating. We saved significant sums of money. It's radical surgery. It's not tinkering. And for us to get better outcomes, to bring equity where I would argue there isn't right now, or even substantially equal resources for all of our kids, is going to require some hard choices and some difficult policy that we'll need to enact, and we will not be able to do that without not just engaging the public or including them in some meetings, but they need to be involved in this work, and we have to be extremely transparent. And I have concerns about our window. When we did all that work, we didn't do any school closures the first year. We had to cut a $26 million gap out of a $180 million budget. So the first thing we did was staffing, and I would equate that maybe with class size here. We couldn't go after the schools because there were people who were strong Vincent Colonels, like through and through. They were East High Warriors, they were the Central Falcons, and you couldn't take that away from them even if you showed them that the school that was built for 2,500 students only had 800 students in. You could not convince anyone. And they didn't want their taxes increased. So we're fighting so many tug of wars here on so many different levels. Talk about 3D chess. But I think we have to acknowledge that if we're going to be successful in this work, there will be sacrifices that we'll be asking some entities to make. And I think you as legislators will have tons of pressure from people who will oppose a lot of those ideas. But it can be done. But it's going to take real serious public engagement.
Yeah, Jay, thanks. And to add to that, we have the second oldest school building portfolio in the country. So that does play a part when we're thinking about what the landscape is going to look like. We have old buildings that are failing. Many of them are failing. That's a big one.
Can I just build on what you just said? Because I think one of the pieces that you mentioned, which is what is the legislation that needs to change in order for the new maps to be successful? And I know that that's adding an awful lot of work for a group that aren't lawyers, right? With that, but I think that if we don't highlight that in the end, we will set our state up for failure. To make more change that can't be successful without changing the law is doing harm, right? And so I think that's you've said a lot of things, but I don't want that one to get lost.
Yes, Rebecca.
May I try to summarize just so that if I miss something, the group can correct it?
Sure.
I think we heard a lot of talk about, I think in particular focusing on making sure that there's fair outcomes for all students in all schools. I think we heard that there's a very strong, these aren't in the order that you said them, by the way. We said that there's a very strong need for public voice. It's not just input, you actually need to be part of the process. I think, and we heard that actually from several people. We heard a need to clarify what are the hard choices, that better is possible, but that better involves some hard strategic choices. And even just having clarity about what those trade-offs are might be helpful. I heard that cost and how to address it and what kinds of compromises or sacrifices might be necessary to get us to better, that we really have to have a conversation on what's, right back to your point, what are the cost drivers here. I heard several people say practical. I love Beth's phrasing, stay on your skis. I'm gonna put that up there. And I also heard that we need to, as we go, be realistic that redistricting, as Scott said, is a very narrow task and we have a very narrow mission. But that in order for redistricting to have any value, there may be other changes that have to take place. And I think Edie, you summed it up as we need to keep track of what other changes are necessary for whatever maps we put forward that would make those maps successful or not. And that's part of evaluating the trade-offs. Does that cover what people were saying, or are there other things I'm missing?
That's a really great summary, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. So again, we're pretty much tracking on time, which is, well, we're 2 minutes off, but not bad. Educational data, I don't know how you all want to handle this, but I thought maybe we could go around the room and throw out one piece of data, for example, that we might want to ask for. But then we could also have the opportunity for you all to perhaps send us an email in the next couple of days with any other data requests that you might have. I know we don't have time now to go through all of the data that we want, and we probably need a little time to think about it, actually. So if folks would be willing, if you've got something burning right now that you would just like to get out there, or even just give an example, that would be helpful. And then we can gather other requests, put it in a document, and share it with the administration to see what we can get for future meetings. How does that sound? Oh, thank you. Great. I can start. One thing I'm very curious about would be speaking to some demographers, people who really understand the demographics of Vermont. I heard over and over again that we had 120,000 students. We're down to somewhere between 80 and 85,000. And then I'm hearing folks projecting that we might even be looking at going down to like 60 or 65,000. So I am interested in getting data that is projecting what our future population looks like. And I know obviously that's hard, but I do think that would inform some of what we're doing. Thank you.
Can I add on to that? Not just the population, but where will that population be located?
Good point.
Related to that, I think we need to face the question around school districts. That's what we're tasked with doing. How many is enough? You look at Hawaii, which is one school district across several islands, with much lower per pupil cost than Vermont, maybe somewhere in the middle, I think. You look at New York, which is off the charts, so maybe that's not a good comparison, but why do some places provide a good education, a very good education, at a lower price, with fewer school districts, with a focus on kids, maximizing opportunities for kids, both in public and private schools, and how that intersects? Those are important questions.
I'm really interested in a whole bunch of different maps with overlays. And those overlays are everything from the current CLAs to the distance with the schools of the farthest kids and where they're transported, to governance models on the map. And I know some of these exist, but I think if you overlay some over the other, you can see some interesting dynamics.
There's a lot there. Can I just say mapping overlays and then example where kids live and where they go to school? Something like
Exactly.
that. Okay.
and the state of facilities with ratings on that map. If you look at when the maps were redone in the late 60s, early 70s, when all of our union schools were built, that was the last time there was a huge change in buildings, which is different than the governance, which is what this is.
I have to share one thing. If you sit in a classroom in Hazen Union High School, you can have 4 kids with the exact same disability who get 4 different service baskets because they're served by 4 different DAs. So we would throw the DAs in there as well.
And just to add on to that, Jen, you know, the administration's got so much great information on our schools, on our buildings, and our facilities in their state, that's something that we need to make sure we all have access to. The ratings for all the buildings, that's a great point.
For me, a data piece is the capacity of our agency of education. How we're doing with the hiring of the new positions, how we're doing with all of the positions in the agency. What kind of support is still needed to implement any of these changes?
Great. Any other data?
Can I ask about the demographics? What are you looking for? I'd be interested in birth rates. I'd also be interested in the census from what 2020 is projected. And I'm with Jen, I'd love to see the facility index condition, so we know what we have and where we're going. Yeah, that might be what you meant, Martine, I'm not sure, but that's what I'd like, birth rates, you know, through more or less a population projection.
Yeah.
We've done those for Owen Action Pack in the day, and it's super helpful with birth rates, and you can track pre-K, K, et cetera. And the census will help us know who's moving to the state, are we status quo, which I think we are, but I don't know. I mean, it just kind of help plan out the next 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Please.
One of the things that's challenging with that demographic information is our N is so small. If you look at Houston or Montgomery County or Chicago, they can do long-range population projections because they're looking at much larger numbers. When we're talking about an itty-bitty town, and you're going from 8 to 10 kids in the graduating class, so there's, I think there needs to be included in that the body of information and research around how you can use demographics, because Vermont tends to look at the whole state, but it's very different in the fine grains.
Good point.
Jay?
Since we have GIS resources, I would love to see projections of optimized school locations across the state and see how well we match up.
Yeah, can I just clarify? What is optimal locations for schools?
We could put a pin where every single child of school age lives in the state of Vermont right now. And we could actually draw their bus route to the school they go to now, but you can also use GIS to figure out what location would be optimal for all of those students, or groups of those students. And our problem might be, not that our schools are old and crumbling, but they may not be in the places where they had population density before. And it might be an easier fix to repurpose some of those buildings and build a new school where kids can get to it.
I said you don't know till you've looked at it.
Exactly.
Like if this building is in an optimal location, needs a little renovation, or,
Absolutely.
I think that we had clear requirements for information in the statute, and so I don't want us to miss any of that. I don't think we need to sort of reiterate it, but I think as you all are going through that list and you share it back to us in case it prompts any thinking, that would be helpful. I think top of the mind would also be clarity around CTE and what districts send to which designated CTEs. I think that is not necessarily obvious when you're looking at a governance structure. And the list of the remaining approved private partners in the work, so that we can be mindful of this. That's one of our requirements for one of the maps. So I think we have to have more clarity on that.
The only thing, this is great, you guys are amazing, so don't really feel a need to, except one thing that has been helpful in the past is turnover data. And there are significant variation across districts of tenure of principals and tenure of superintendents. And those are a pretty good flag of supervisory unions and supervisory districts where people are at stress. If you over extended periods of time, a history of repeated high turnover, that suggests some struggle or strain within the system. It might be helpful to see where those are.
And then I would just appreciate more clarity on outcomes, because equity, do we just look at scores? Do we look at, I mean, are there maybe 10 different items that we want to track? I think that's really important.
Our N size becomes a problem there too. Because in really, really, really small schools, you can't even publicly report the data because it's identifiable.
That's true. And also,
Could you do it as a district?
It might still be too small.
I would,
But, okay, so there will be constraints.
Yes.
But I think we still need to have a goal, and
Definitely.
a goal of what our goals. You know, how do we measure, you know, other than the cost, how do we measure the benefit to the students?
Rebecca wanted to say something.
I really appreciate you saying that, because that is true not just for assessment data, it's also
For a
true for
lot.
participation in APs, but participation in CTE, participation in dual enrollment.
Demographic data,
Any
even
demographic
can be
data.
too small to
With
report.
assessment, it is really poor practice in Vermont to use proficiency scores, because they are like 5 times as volatile as the scale scores. So just a thought, we might use scale scores and not proficiency. Also, because depending where it sits depending where your school's distribution is relative to the cut score.
It's important to have, but
spurious. It
we
doesn't
may
mean
not
that.
be able to
Right.
get what you think we can get.
Yes.
I think I would just amplify that problem,
It's
and
just
as
meaningful data.
one that we should be solving in these governance districts. Like, I think we should not be creating governance models that prevent us from seeing how our students are doing, is an argument I'll make for us to consider as we do this work.
Yes, Rebecca.
And hopefully, I mean, if we were really going to use outcome data, we would need to be building statistical models that can control for things like level of poverty and other fixed effects around schools and superintendents and other stuff. So unless we are going to build capacity into the AOE, I think we have to take all of our outcome data with a little bit humble pie. It just isn't going to tell you as much as you think it will.
And I think, I was just thinking, and I certainly wouldn't want to speak for the AOE, but I think sort of narrowing the field of oversight and responsibility to a more manageable number of either independent schools and or how we are looking at a manageable, adequate number of public districts. I think it may offer the opportunity for the AOE to speak to how that would impact their use of resources and staffing, and what will be necessary to ensure we are building systems that are, to our best ability, optimized, yes, within the constraints of current structure, but maybe that structure and resources will be used differently.
How about Miss Summers?
I trust you to figure out how to make me more succinct.
So that seems like an iteration, I think, on what Edie said, which is, when we talk about the future, have we given the Agency of Education the capacity to do the work that we're giving the AOE to do? Is that sort of what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Especially as I think about the new state, because they may have opinions on how that changes what they're currently doing.
Oh, Jay's got his hand up. Jay.
I guess along this whole idea of AOE capacity, I guess data around the status of the idea of implementing a BOCES-like system of shared services. It seems to me the work that we're going to do here, a lot of it, we may come up with a solution that only works if we have some sort of shared services platform.
I know that Secretary Saunders has to leave at 10. I hope you're still here. I'm wondering if it might be a good opportunity to ask, and I know this is last minute, what the status is on the hiring of the positions that are in the bill, and the note about a hiring freeze, if you could clarify that for us, that would be incredibly helpful.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. I'm Zoe Saunders, Secretary of Education. Thank you for the question. Regarding the new staff positions, we did get confirmation that those have been identified from the pool. And so we're working right now with HR to finalize those job descriptions and job codes and expect for those to be posted by the end of the month. And with respect to the hiring freeze, I think the term hiring freeze has a very specific meaning within state context. It would be better to describe what the agency put into place as a pause. And so that was in response to a lot of the federal uncertainty, but that was really part of the review to evaluate the job descriptions for certain vacancies to make sure that we were scoping those in a way that would be most aligned to the expertise that we need at the agency to support our work. And so that just is an important clarification as we move forward.
So I was going to say, so posted in August means hired October, November at the earliest? Probably?
Hard to project. I mean, we'll be moving as quickly as we can in terms of the interview process.
And I know you have a lot of other positions that are vacant. So are those, like you said, pause, but not every position is federal dollars. So how, like,
so the
how
pause
are we
was
doing with getting?
the pause was a very temporary pause for a couple of weeks, as you would want me to do as the secretary, as there is a potential loss of millions of dollars, just to evaluate that impact, and where there are vacancies that were fully funded by federal dollars. That was important for us to evaluate. But that was temporary, and I was reviewing every single open vacancy and providing some exceptions as we move forward with continuing to recruit and hire for some of those critical vacancies. So it was just part of a normal process that you would want me to do, to be responsible with state dollars and also to protect my employees.
Thank you. I think to follow up on Edie's question, when the posting for the new positions happens, what is the normal cadence of turnaround on a posting to an in-the-seat hiring, just generally?
So we will open up the pool. I mean, if we probably 3 to 4 weeks in terms of accepting applications, and then starting the interview process thereafter can go pretty quickly.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's an important strategy.
So if it's okay with folks, I know we're heading into a weekend, so maybe if you could send your data requests by like Monday at 5 to Edie and me, and then we can make sure that we get those onto the administration as quickly as possible. That would be great. And is it okay with all of you if we liaise with the administration on things like this, information that we need and data requests and, okay, thank you.
for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, would it make more sense to have everybody see it so that we're not repeating each other's work in our data requests?
So anytime we do a group email, it's a public meeting. So we have to, so
Yes,
just
I
send
know
them
that.
directly
That's
to
right. Yes,
us.
I know that, thank you.
That does make sense, but.
Thank you for providing it.
Yeah. So we are wrapped up on data. We can move on to the next agenda item, which is the role of the commission. And as you saw in the, in Act 73, the role of the commission in terms of what we're doing is to really help us with our public engagement They already have a fairly good system going of engaging with the public, and they are also going to be using a facilitator to do some of their work. So you may have seen an email from Peter Conlon, Representative Conlon, who is on the commission. He was asking that we share with him how we can best work with the commission in terms of gleaning public input. So my question for you, and the question that, because I did have a conversation with Representative Conlon, was, you know, what kinds of questions should they be asking the public? What do we want to hear from the public that will help inform what we're doing? And I know that those are big questions, but we have until 10:10 before we talk about the facilitation contract. So it would be good to hear from folks in terms of how they see that relationship with the commission, what kind of questions they would like to be asking folks throughout Vermont, in all corners of the state. And yeah, just to help the commission know what they should be doing for us, because right now they're not sure, other than they want to help.
I would like the commission to give us their opinion of what we should ask. I mean, that wouldn't be our only source, but
Yeah.
really, I mean, they're doing it.
They've
so
been
I
doing
think
this
it would
work,
be
yeah.
really helpful.
Great. Jen, did you have your hand up? Kim?
I would love feedback from folks on what is most important to preserve in our, you know, from community members, from board members, from educators, and then what are their hopes for the opportunities. And in both of those, my hope is that it is not necessarily about like what is the structure to hold on to versus what are the values and the, you know, the educational experiences that are most important to preserve and protect, and what are those that you wish could be expanded through greater opportunities.
Can I follow up on that? Or, I'm sorry, you were starting.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm obviously interested in what the public has to think, but right now what I'm hearing, at least in my area, is school districts and school boards want to tell us what they think. And how do we, I've kind of been telling them, well, we'll come up with a channel, some way to do that, but they're talking and they're having meetings and they want to tell us what their conversations are, so, and they represent the public, obviously. So I definitely want to make sure that we build something in here where they can communicate with us.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point, Scott. So first of all, absolutely they should show up to the commission meetings where they're asking for public input, and our 2 meetings that have yet to be determined. But also, you know, we are gonna have brief public comment periods, which I know they're short, but they can come, they can speak, give us a very broad introduction on what they want to say, and then submit their comments in writing, and we will make sure that that is all.
And I think they want to submit some things. I don't even know like what email we give them or.
Oh, okay.
But somewhere like a throat where it can all go through. Yeah.
Maybe at the end of the meeting, Sarah can.
So are you, I think you're talking about 2 kinds of public input. One is from official bodies and one is from the broader public. Is that what you're saying, Scott?
Yeah, official bodies that represent the people in their district, but yeah.
So we may need an official channel for school districts to give us.
Yeah, I mean, just something as simple as an email where everything should go.
Good point. Jen, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I envision the work plan is a bunch of information collecting, including all this data, and also input, and then putting that together with, here's the data we have, what's your specific comments on that, and then proceeding to put together maps. So the commission would be collecting information. The second step after we have that information, it makes sense to me to ask, throw the net out there and say, what's people's input? But without some of the other information put together and what we know commingled with input, I think it'd be more helpful. have that as a work plan, if that makes sense.
You're thinking in systems, it's good. Systems thinker, that's good. We need that. Yes, that does make sense. Thank you. Okay, anything else in that regard?
I just wanted to follow up on what Kim was saying, because what I've been asking constituents is, what do you value about our current system? And so don't say, I like SUs, I like SUs. Say why, you know, and say what is the characteristic that you value. And so I just think sometimes we need to have a structure in mind that we're talking about, and other times we need to just talk about the activities or the outcomes. And so, and to your point, Jennifer, saying first names, or Jen, I don't know which you prefer, but I think we should, it's really helpful to get specific feedback on something specific. And so I think if we can have structured feedback also as we go through, and just ask questions, maybe on our website, and have folks answer the questions, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's something that's been dealing with my constituents, is because I'll hear, well, I don't lose local control.
Yes.
What aspects of local control specifically? Because sometimes it just becomes a buzzword. So like you said, specifically, what do you have now that you don't want to lose? What are you hoping to gain?
I'm not positive that this would be something we push off on the commission, if you will, but I would invite us to be mindful of the jargon in our world and the depth and breadth of data we're going to have, and do we have a mechanism among us, or maybe with the facilitation, that is sort of summarizing, you know, the ways that people can understand what we're using for our decision making, and then dig deeper by links if they should wish to do that. So transparency is important.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what Kim and Scott said, and in that I'm mindful that not every town has the privilege of representation in this task force. So I really think that an official channel is important, as Scott said, because it lets everybody feel like they have a foot in the door. It can't be through us, because we can't be here to represent our communities. We have to be here to represent the state. And so I think that is a really good suggestion.
So we have an email just for the whole commission, and it's posted on our agenda for folks, and just PSA, right? For folks who do want to share information with us, and we'll talk about it again, but there is an email that will be available to all of us. The data will be collected and available to all of us, so that there should be an equality, like everybody should be able to reach all of us. And we've already set that up.
Great. One more, Kim.
I was just gonna put a pin in, call our attention to Rebecca's sentiment that we are sitting here looking to help build a system for the statewide delivery of high quality education for every student in Vermont. And so I want to highlight the idea that is our purpose, and I appreciate it. I'm not a politician, so I don't have constituents, but we all have neighbors, and that can help inform how we sit in this space as maybe proxies for other parts of the state. But I am deeply committed, and I know that we probably all are, to thinking about the system while constrained by the resources we have to implement effectively, sort of unconstrained by only that which we know. I think we would be doing a disservice to this work if that was not the way we were showing up for this.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else? We now have a segue to invite Secretary Clark up to talk about the facilitation contract. And I'm gonna, so there's a little bit of a shift here. I'm gonna step out for a minute as well.
And just so, I was gonna say, do we need 3, can we do 3 minutes? 3-minute break? I'd appreciate it.
I would
Do as quickly as you can. So we're ready to get back on. Folks will come back and join.
Can I just say to everyone, I have gotten a few communications asking folks to speak up and speak clearly because Teams is not great. Sorry. We have a love-hate relationship with it, but there's a lot of mumbling and the people aren't hearing, so thank you.
So, yes, we have Secretary Clark here to take us through what our options are for hiring a facilitator and how we can go about doing that.
Great, thank you. So, as I mentioned earlier, when I reviewed the appropriations in the bill, there is $50,000 appropriated for facilitation services. The language in the bill indicates that the task force shall retain the services of one or more independent third parties to provide contracted facilitation resources or any other services the task force deems necessary. So I am going to share with the task force what are some of the procurement options related to this work, talk a little bit about the scope of work that you want for these services, and then the timeline and decision discussion. Okay, so within Bulletin 3.5, which is the essentially procedure manual that the Secretary of Administration issues that governs all of our procurement in state government, there are 3 options that we can pursue in the context of the task force work. So the first one is a standard competitive bid. It's kind of exactly what it sounds like, a competitive public bid process. The advantages of this approach is that it clearly lays out all of the expectations and requirements of entering into this contract with the state of Vermont. We have a lot of kind of standard templates and requirements if you want to do business with the state that sometimes folks that are interested in working with the state may not be aware of until they see all of this information. And so this process casts a broad net, anybody can apply, and it tells you everything that you're going to be required to do, and it includes things like our attachment C, which is our standard terms and conditions for working with the state. The disadvantages of this approach is that it is a lot of information. If you're a smaller contractor, it may feel a bit overwhelming in terms of what all the requirements are. And if it's truly a simple, straightforward bid that you want to do, you may not need all of the information. I'll point out here that on our website in the materials provided to the task force, I provided 2 sample subject to change examples of what those procurements could be. And so you'll see for the standard competitive bid, it's multi-pages. It's a lot of legalese language. I'm not a lawyer, and so, but just to give you a kind of a sense of what that looks like. And it was, to be clear, those, both the competitive RFP and the simplified bid that we'll talk about, I had my Office of Procurement within the Department of Buildings and General Services. I provided them the information from the bill and I said, can you please draw this together as a starting point? And so the language that you see in those documents was pulled by our procurement experts into these templates, essentially. The second option is a simplified bid. Best practice is always to do a competitive bid, but there are some instances where you need to be more targeted, and so we can use a simplified bid when the anticipated contract amount will be less than $250,000, which it will be in this case. We have $50,000 for this contract. So when you do a simplified bid, you essentially solicit price quotations from at least 3 potential providers of those services. It doesn't have to be 3, you can do more than 3, but you will, in general, when we have done this in the past, we look to people that maybe we have worked with over the years that are kind of known entities to the state, or perhaps you've received a recommendation from someone. You're not limited to only send it to 3, you can send it to as many as you want. And you provide, and as is on the website, there's just a one-page simplified bid document that gives it's a more high-level description of the services that we are looking for, based on what the language is in the bill. We will also include attachment C. Again, those are non-negotiables from the state's perspective, and so we do need to be upfront with the folks that will bid on it, that these are the requirements. And essentially, even though it's a more simple process to solicit the price quotations, all of the documentation of a competitive RFP will still be required in this simplified process. The advantages of this approach, it's direct, more straightforward. The disadvantages, it could slow down once the winning bidder is like, oh wait, I didn't realize, I have to have insurance, all of these types of things. And so, and then the third option is a sole source waiver, which in general we try to not do. It's really when there is no other alternative, and that's when you just say this is the only person that can provide this service, or if it's an emergency circumstance, but you have to provide a justification. And so I would put that out there because it does exist, but probably not best for the purposes that we're looking for here. So those are our options. For the scope of work, as I said, we'll have to develop a statement of work. We've done, just based on the bill, given you some examples. I think part of our conversation today will be what else do you want in there? Because the bill talks about facilitation services, but my guess is that you want to include some other things in addition to just facilitation services, because this task force has a report that's due on December 1st. And so that might be something that you want to consider as we move forward with this. And then for awareness, the timeline and decision making. So when we post a bid or solicit price quotations to a simplified bid, the minimum is 5 days for responding. So the best case timeline to execute this contract is probably 2 weeks, and that would be like, let's say Monday. We have agreement on what we want, how we want to approach it, and what are the services and the qualities that we're looking for, and my team will go forth and put it in motion as quickly as possible, and then hopefully within 2 weeks we can have a contract executed. But just to be clear, we can do it from a focus perspective, but it'll depend on the needs of the task force and who responds. And then, from there we'll select a vendor, and I think we can discuss what's gonna make the most sense for the task force, whether it's an entire task force discussion and decision, if we would want the chairs to play that role in terms of, working with my team to review the bids and make that selection and make a recommendation to the task force. And I included on this slide, these are some of the metrics that we could use to evaluate the respondents, the qualifications of the team, their experience in facilitating, their capacity to accomplish this work, because it's a tight timeline for everybody, and then the cost, which it's out there in the bill. We've got $50,000, so. So those are the slides I wanted to share. We could also, we posted the samples of both the simplified bid and the procurement, and maybe we want to have a discussion about what sort of services, in addition to facilitation, if there's more than just facilitation you would like for us to procure on your behalf, and other qualities. And to be clear, probably about a month and a half ago, I was all gung-ho, I was going to get this facilitator in, and then I read the bill language, and it's not me, it is you, so.
So I think, and please correct me, but I think because of our timeline, we really have to do a simplified bid in order to get, I think, okay. I've been hearing incredibly reasonable people say reasonable things around the table, so I figured that we would probably get there pretty quickly. And also that we need somebody who can write the report, because I'm guessing that there's not a person around the table here that wants that responsibility. But if we have an independent person do that, we will review it obviously before we submit it as a group. Is that, yeah.
I agree. I think we need a simplified bid. I think we need to do it as quickly as possible because how we structure the conversations and how we document at each meeting will actually let the report write itself. So I think timing is of the essence. I assume you'll facilitate the meetings, but that there will be significant facilitation of workflow that we need this person to help with. And so I would respectfully suggest that perhaps we authorize our chairs to work with the Secretary of Administration to put together a simplified bid and to make a decision to get somebody on board. And I realize that we may want to have input on the specific work task before that happens, but I'm comfortable delegating that to our chairs, so that would be.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, that was a motion. Let's get this done. Thank you, Dave.
So I just want to make sure there's not more discussion on that. I don't want to.
To be clear, my motion doesn't preclude this committee giving input on what those facilitation tasks are. It's just authorizing you with input from the task force to execute the process with the Secretary of Administration. That makes sense.
So any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. So then, what else needs to be in the contract that people don't see here? You know, I'm hoping you're comfortable with the way we're running the meeting. I would think that we can continue to do that, and if that becomes an issue, we can have the facilitator do that, but I don't see that as their primary role. I see their primary role as helping us get prepared for the meeting and making sure that we have the information that we need, making sure that the right people come in to present what we need to present, all of those kind of pieces, and being able to, again, take all of the information that we develop and put it into a report that makes sense, that everybody can use going forward for future law. But what else?
I wonder, on that recognition of the work being technical, potentially jargon related, could we also ask that they provide those sort of summary documents that the public can access in addition to minutes? So layman's overview of our meetings, like that is of interest to folks.
Unless the administration's already doing that. We are taking minutes of the meetings, and our goal would that it, well, reflects the content of the meeting, but also is hopefully understandable. And if there is jargon used, I also need that translation because I'm not an education expert like the folks around this table, and so you know, we would have an eye towards doing that. Are you speaking more to like summary documents?
Yeah, I think I was thinking more that, like, you know, big takeaways that are easily digestible, if we were wanting to have them available in the universe in a easily accessible way that allowed people to go deeper for the details, but stay abreast of the progress, I guess.
Wendy?
Right, so I think a glossary also would be helpful. And if they could work on our collection of outreach, I think that would be a reasonable task for this person. And just a question for you or anyone else, is there someone with serious experience in Vermont education who is available now to do this? Do you think?
Probably not, but possibly, right?
Okay.
But it might just be someone who's good at pulling information together.
Okay, it would be great. I think they should get more points if they have experience in education. Well, and specifically Vermont.
I think what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah, Wendy, I agree. You read my mind. Do we have a list of potential mechanic facilitators? Do we have a list?
I've been, and I would appreciate the task force input here because I have done my own research and I've worked with some facilitators in other non-education contexts, so I have a list, but I think looking to you, if you have people that you've worked with in the past or heard of, we would send it to them and that would be really helpful. my names are not education experts, and so you all probably have more of those facilitators with that education background.
The simplified bill requires you to send it to 3, but it doesn't limit how many people. So I just, again, I think if you can do that process and share the link, we can all share it with as many people as possible and see, because there may not be a huge force of people, but if we are all working, we can get some good people, because there are good people in the state.
This is not the first education report that's been.
You think? In fact, some people would like there to be fewer.
I think you might have said it, but a work plan and calendar that helps people keep the timeline of our progress.
And just to add to, I think it's really important to plan backwards. Because we have a deadline for reports, and so we need to plan backwards to when we need to draft. And with respect to your summaries, if this is a good work plan, this report should write itself.
I have one question, and I remember, I think the commission's piece requires a 30-day draft review, and I didn't remember reading that in hours. And Beth is shaking her head no, so I didn't read it in hours.
I don't remember seeing it either.
And the commission's does require that, so their work backward deadline is 30 days before their deadline, and ours does not have that constraint, so there's no public comment period of a draft. We might want to think about whether or not in building the work calendar, there's a benefit in good practice to having that be part of our work.
And just to call it out, right, we have 4 months to do 2 years minimum worth of work.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be hard to build that concise work.
And in that spirit, it's really not helpful to have documents the day before a meeting. I would really strongly encourage us to try to hit the goal that's the minimum standard, at least it was at the state board, 2 weeks in advance. So that people are busy, people are working other jobs, to make sure that they have time to not just read, but understand what's being presented, I think is critical to the extent we can.
2 weeks might be optimistic, but we can shoot for it.
But my point is, if you don't shoot for 2 weeks, you don't hit a week. I'm just telling you.
It might also give us opportunities to get back to both of you with questions that are prompted from our preparation in time for the responsiveness of whoever shares the data with us.
It also means we don't present things that are problematic.
Yeah, that's it. Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you
all. And, wow, 10:30, we are right on time. We would like to invite Secretary Riley Hughes and John Adams up to talk about the school district builder. I'll make a little bit of a caveat. I already said it earlier. I find it a little bit problematic to be, thinking about this in terms of like a technical fix right out of the gate. But we have had a great discussion. We have talked a lot about the issues and about our goals and the problems that we're trying to solve. So I welcome you, and we look forward to seeing what you have to present today.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Denise Riley Hughes. I know I had a chance to introduce myself a little bit earlier, but we are excited to have a chance to speak with you all.
You can bring more.
I appreciate your concerns, just as a starting point, given that we want to make sure. A little louder. Sure. We want to make sure we don't solution something before we've identified what the problem statement is. So what the goal here is, I know that we've created a little bit of a visual using tool sets and services and systems that we already use in our everyday world today. And ultimately, what you're going to see, that I will introduce John in a second, is a visual that will allow those data-informed decision-making to happen. So this is an opportunity, as you provided all of the different data sets that you are going to be looking for. ADS is a central point of supporting agencies and departments across the state that may actually have that data. And this is the work that John and his team does today. Anyways, so we're listening very intently to make sure that we can work with the right folks, and especially with Secretary Clark around getting access to that information. The other piece here too is that a system or service or let's say map like this also allows us to maintain public transparency through this process. And then the other piece is it ensures ease of use so that it has an efficient access in a way that doesn't require expertise. And so this is what makes it important for all the various audiences that are interested in the work that this task force is doing, but ultimately the task force yourselves. So, John Adams, he is the Agency of Digital Services Director for our Vermont Center for Geographic Information. And you are going to walk us through a little journey of what's in place today and then the options as well.
Great, thank you, Secretary. So we've put together this this application more or less as you can think of it as a demonstration of what's possible, but see it as a starting point. And it was built, for you. And we certainly will be looking for feedback, listening to what you're asking for, and modifying this to make sure it is as useful as possible. I am sharing my screen now. I think folks following along in the Teams meeting should be able to see it. I'll give a very brief overview. The concept of it is that we're starting with Vermont towns, Vermont municipalities as the building blocks, right? There are 256.
Is it possible to turn down the lights that are on the screen so we can see a little bit?
Like the big lights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's possible.
Well,
It's a little washed out.
oh,
Oh, much better.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, so the idea is we're using Vermont's 256 towns as those base building blocks that you can then create districts with. You can see here, there's a button that'll give you an app guide and info on how to use the tool, which I won't go through because I will show you very briefly. Some information on the data sources and information available, which we'll be adding to, and some disclaimers, one of which I will highlight is that these maps, so the municipal boundaries in here have been simplified just to help make the application a little snappier, to work quicker. Obviously, when it's time to produce your actual report, we will give you the authoritative town boundaries and make sure those are all very accurate. But if you zoom in, things look a little funky. That is because we've just simplified this to help with performance.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Are the student amounts from 2024 that were, what year that?
So at the town level, we are using the FY25 ADM, which I believe is 23-24. And I think there is a link to that data as well. But generally, we'll do, I think, a better job of either annotating or adding a little more description. There are things here like and list value. That could mean there's more nuance to that. So here, that's the concept of it. To get started, I think there are maybe 3 ways where you can approach building things. You can start off here, enter your map name. This is my map. So selected this district up here on the right. If you can't see what I'm doing here, you can rename districts here. Just say almost Canada, where I'm from. I'm sure you can tell from my heavy accent. So you can then just start clicking towns, and you'll see dynamically it's adding the ADM here. You can also, and then select another town and start creating another district. You can click on the supervisory union tabs. So another option is to use these. So these are groups of towns and then start building them from supervisory unions. So if you wanted to create districts built up of these supervisory unions, you could do that. You know, you click it again, you can remove them or modify them by clicking on a town or adding it that way. And then you can also, there are some pre-configurations I've added here. So let's say you selected regional planning commissions. Those will all be assigned by towns to create districts, and then you can you know, modify those if you want and change the names. You can click on the generate report, and it will give you a comparison. So looking at the average daily membership across districts, the grand list per student here. It includes a few other variables. So we have the facility condition index that shows you, by district that you've created what the breakdown is there. We've also included here SU and TAC, so this tells you whether or not any supervisory unions have been broken up in the configuration that you've created. And then you'll have a more detailed district profile to which we can add various things that the task force would like. You can select a different district here. It'll show you the towns served, their grand list. I should make note that the home and non-home is the existing or the prior definition. I think that is changing. So we will work with the tax department and make sure that we're displaying the most relevant information on public schools here as well, and then some information on independent schools as well, though we have less of that. If you go back to the map view, you can also, if you select the drop down at a glance here, see how many schools broken up by what type they are, their ADM and the facility condition index as well from the map view. And then if you need more districts, you can simply create a new one. If you hit select more, you can export and save. If you wanted to export your graphic and your list of districts, you can create a shareable link. So if you click on that and then send that to somebody, you will get a lengthy URL that is giving all the instructions to the application, telling it what to do, and you're able to share your configuration with anybody, and anybody can access this application, create their own districts, and send it to you if they'd like. You can also download the CSV. So this would be a table that lists all the towns by which district you've assigned them to, along with their ADM. And this would be maybe a more robust way of saving it. So if you spend a lot of time working on a certain configuration, I suggest doing that instead of just creating the copying the shareable link.
I think I was gonna cut you off, unless you had something really important you need to add, because I wanted to give folks time to ask questions, and then we still need to do public comment and some other things.
I think that covers everything.
So I just have a quick, how in our bill, in our charge, in number 4, we have A through N of items that we're supposed to take into consideration. Do you know how many of those have information in this bill, right, in this builder, in this map builder?
In this,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I did review that and added all of those that we had readily available. So we used what we had. There may have been one or two that need a little more, that I had questions about and didn't include yet, but.
Yeah, there is a great representation of almost all of that, but we can get the crosswalk for you on which ones we're still missing.
That would be great. Thank you.
And for the private school, independent school part of it, is that current and not reflective necessarily of those that will continue to be eligible, correct? The reduced list?
Yes,
Those
there's actually no, and yesterday it had we used the independent school directory that was available in the spring, and realizing that the definition was changing. So we just pulled that, and right now it's just a list of public schools. It doesn't tell you what type they are, because we thought that might add some confusion, given that changing definition. But it's up to you all.
No, I think at this point, I haven't seen the list, or I don't know that we have it as data anyway, but at the point at which we're potentially trying to use this for drawing those maps, I think that would be important for us to consider as it's one of our requirements.
Just following up on that, but we will have the data of the previous list, or the current list of independent schools. We'll
That
still
I have.
have that data, right?
Yes.
And we can still look at it in the builder.
Sure.
Yeah, the builder's great. It's terrific. I've been having some fun with it. And it's wonderful that the public can access it too. And thank you for working on it before we started.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Did you want to say?
I was going to say that it does appear that based on what we were hearing today in the room, if the task force is looking for it, we can create a bit of a dictionary or glossary so that we can cross-reference terms so that we're all speaking the same language.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's great.
If we have future meetings as our next agenda item, as a statement that I hope folks will agree with, 6-hour meetings, 8-hour meetings, longer meetings, I think is gonna be really important for us. So I'm hoping that we can block out a day and then maybe breaks every 90 minutes or so built into the agenda. Is that something that folks would be comfortable with, blocking out a whole day and then?
I say 6, not 8.
Because we have time, travel time, and
Well, I just don't know how productive you're gonna be in hours 7, 8.
yeah, it's gonna be heavy lifting. Great, and then did everyone get a chance to send their blackout dates to Chrissy? Because I think that's gonna be important. I'm sure that it will be impossible, I'm hoping not, but I'm sure it will be impossible for all of us to be at the table for all of the rest of the meetings, but if we can make it work, then that would be ideal, so.
Just another aspect on the meetings, I think it would be really helpful if they start later. 8:30 is very early.
For traveling,
Yeah, so if we could just start at 9:30, 10, but 9:30 works.
Also split the difference from meetings
Yeah,
and
and,
middle of the state.
right, or have meetings in
Different locations.
different locations. I think that would be great. I think that would be helpful to the public. And then just a schedule suggestion is if we could meet in 2 weeks, just to get going.
Go ahead.
On the other side, we have a lot of information that we've said we need, and I wonder if it makes sense to delay the first meeting until we have something to work with, and then meet more frequently down the road. So I think you could argue that both ways, depending on how easily available that information is.
For the facilitator contract, it seems like a meeting sooner rather than later is important, but I hear what you're saying.
Well, I think they've asked us
We've asked you to do
hire.
that, so you don't need us
So
for
we
that.
just, we don't need
Okay, you guys don't want any, okay?
Well, I think people are gonna give you.
They're gonna give us
Right,
money.
right,
And
okay.
yeah, so-
Then, in that case, we don't have the urgency then for, okay.
But I think it would be good to have that facilitator at our next meeting if possible.
Yes. Sarah, did you want to add?
Yeah, the only, we also thought it would be beneficial if you had the meeting in different locations. I think we will be challenged to find one where we have access to the technology to be able to support this. So we can do an in-person and then the hybrid. And so we can work a little bit with our colleagues at ADS to see what options are beyond the kind of core Berlin, Montpelier, Waterbury. So we'll work with the chairs on that. Just wanted to point that out.
That's a good point.
And then just for folks, I don't know how much public comment we're gonna have. I don't know how many people sitting at the table have to leave right at 11, but if public comment goes over, if folks could stay, I think that would be great. If folks can't stay, absolutely understand that, we had a time limit at 11, so just, again, not knowing who wants to speak. I believe also if folks are comfortable, future meetings, we can do public comment at the beginning rather than at the end, but we wanted folks to be able to hear from us also and then have comment so that they could comment on what they heard today if they so chose. So.
Remember to speak up, whoever's gonna be speaking, remember to speak up, because I'm still getting feedback that it's hard to hear, yeah. So if we're prepared to segue to public comment, I think we should probably start with folks in the room, if there are any folks in the room who would like to speak. This is our first meeting, you wanna limit comments to 2 minutes, which I know is difficult. You will be more than welcome to submit your comments in writing, in fact, we would welcome that. So the task force requests that the participants clearly state their name, place of residence, and topic of comment. And the task force will take no action on items raised during public comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification only. And we request that comments be sent in writing, and there is an email address, adm.redistricting@vermont.gov. And that is on the webpage as well. So we will open public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to come up to the table and speak to the task force? Sue Siglowski, I see you in the audience.
Thank you.
With a hand up.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Sue Siglowski. I'm the Executive Director for the Vermont School Boards Association. And I did submit written comments by email last night, so I will just give you a very brief summary of them now. Thank you very much for your thoughtful meeting this morning, and you'll see that many of the themes that you spoke about are included in our written comments. The proposals made by this task force will have a lasting impact on the children, our communities, and the future of our state. We urge you to approach your work with a commitment to fairness and equity and responsible stewardship of public dollars. Please give careful thought to how you'll ensure transparency and strong public involvement. Public education is a foundation of democracy, funded by all Vermonters. Decisions about its future must be made with a true commitment to providing high-quality public education to all of the students across our state. As you consider redistricting, please remember that Act 73 gives you flexibility. While it sets a size range of 4,000 to 8,000 students per district, the law also says to the extent practical and approximately. That means that you can and should propose districts that make sense for Vermont based on data, research, and local context. Research shows that strong community engagement from school boards is linked to higher student outcomes. Boards in high-performing districts engage with their communities by communicating clearly, listening to educators and families, and building trust. That's much harder to do in districts that are too large or geographically disconnected. We also ask you to be mindful of national pressures facing public education right now. Vermont doesn't need added disruption. We need thoughtful decisions that strengthen our system. The VSBA is here to assist in your work, and we plan to use our regional meetings this fall to inform school board members on the status of your work and gather input from them to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room today? Seeing none, we can move.
If there are folks who are virtual who would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in the Teams. You'll see the top of your screen, the raise with the hand, and then we can facilitate from there. When we have our
Thank you,
folks.
Sarah. So we will move to folks who are on Zoom, and I do see at least one hand raised. Cheryl Charles.
We don't have volume, just a moment. we need to turn on volume from the?
Yeah, our tech staff are next door, so it does seem like we need the volume. Hold for 1 minute, Cheryl.
Why don't you try again?
Bringing in the big guns.
Now.
There we go.
Was it incredibly loud?
It takes two.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. You have the floor.
All right, thank you so much. So Cheryl Charles, I live in Westminster. I chair the Westminster School Board, the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board, and actually chair the steering committee for a relatively new group you may have heard about, the Rural School Community Alliance. Now a voluntary association of about 100 towns in Vermont. We have submitted written comment to you already, 2 documents that I think that I know we sent you, I hope you've seen and will consider. One provides some definitions and distinctions between supervisory districts and supervisory unions, just to give you some additional information from the Alliance perspective. The second document is really a position statement in support of the value of supervisory unions with some evidence to support the reasons we feel strongly about them in this time. I know you all know that more than half of our students in Vermont are educated in rural schools. Therefore, what you're working on right now has the potential to have massive impact on the quality of life for young families and children in our state, puts a lot of aspects of democracy at risk if we're not careful with all of that, and really has the potential to erode economic thrivability, for want of a better word, in rural communities if we do anything to diminish the access to schools in rural areas. So those are just cautions. I'm hearing in your very thoughtful discussion today, which we deeply appreciate, we want you to really question assumptions and question assertions. I thought Senator Gulick did a great job today of saying that we don't know if there's evidence that consolidation saves money. An assumption is that it does. Please do what you're talking about and stand on the evidence. Another example of a concern or an area of risk.
Minutes.
Oh, all right, I'm done. We're happy to help you.
Thank you so
very
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. April Sue Palmer. You have the floor and you're muted. April, can you hear us? You have the floor.
All right, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate the difficult position that you're all in, trying to figure out this huge problem of restructuring everything. I want to say I'm a self-hero, and I'm a parent of a child at Folsom, and we moved here 8 years ago because we wanted our kid to go to a small school. I grew up in Colchester, and I just loved it here in the islands, so that's why we moved here. We have like a small, vibrant community, small schools, so speaking with fellow parents, we're all concerned about how it's going to affect our small schools here. Because North Heroes already closed very quickly. And so yeah, we're all worried about how it's gonna affect the island schools with, if our school closes, super long bus rides, how it would affect extracurriculars and school choice for kids in the islands. So yeah, I feel like if our school did close, it would be very devastating to our community. Our property values would decrease because I know a lot of people would move out of the islands. And probably who would be left in the islands is fewer families and more retirees and vacationers. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. I know that geographic barriers and minimum disruption to students is part of, what we heard from you guys. And I feel like both of those would really apply to the islands. So yeah, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
April, thank you very much. You were under 2 minutes, so that's fantastic. Thank you. Next up, we have Jen Lionhorn. You have the floor.
Good morning, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Jen Lionhorn. I'm a parent of 4 daughters and also at Folsom. I'm also a school counselor there. I have been for the last 3 years. My concern is less about my daughters, who 3 of them will have graduated from high school by then, but more about the students and families that I work with. And in Governor Scott's statement today, he indicated that there would be people critical of this law reform and that it would be that folks want to keep things as is. That's actually not the case. As you can imagine, I mean, we're a gold town, so we've been, you know, we take in a lot more, we put out a lot more money in taxes than our schools receive. And that's not my complaint at all. My concern very much is the speed of this process. If we are going to reform education law, which I agree in many ways needs to happen, we need to be thoughtful about this process, and the very short amount of time in which you all are being asked to redistrict the state of Vermont and our students is just simply too quick. I am against, of course, I am against in many ways this law because I think there's things that could be done much better, but the speed of it is what I'm most concerned about right now, and I would really ask you all to let the governor know that you need more time to look at the data, to determine, to allow for public comment, and to determine how this is really going to impact specifically our rural schools. The other schools, I think they figured it out. They figured it out with Act 46, but rural schools and rural students often are the ones that, one of the reasons why we love Vermont is we don't fit into a box. And you all are being asked to do something that is going to have a potentially negative impact as the law stands right
Jen,
now.
that's 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Shantae Parchment. I can't see the whole name.
Shantae Parchment Latte, thank you for having me. I just want to make a note about safety with the children. We moved to South Sierra to Folsom for a small school classroom size. My child was left outside in the middle of winter for 45 minutes in one of these Chittenden County schools. So for us, it's safety. If this act is passed, we will move out of Vermont or we would homeschool. And I think that's how a lot of island families are considering right now. So I just wanted to let you know that yes, something does have to be done, but we also have to consider safety in classroom sizes and being too large, especially with small children.
Thank you, Shantae. Appreciate that. Next up, R. Sweeney. You have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I do want to mimic what the person who just spoke said around class sizes.
Sorry, can you state your name for us, please?
Oh, Rachel Sweeney.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit of research around the benefit of smaller class sizes, and I realize that's not the most financially effective decision, but in terms of actually educating the students, it's paramount, especially with the increased number of students with mental health challenges in our schools today. So in addition to that, I'm very concerned about the minimum class sizes specifically for independent schools. I've spent my career going back and forth between therapeutic independent schools and public schools trying to meet the needs of students with emotional disabilities and severe mental health challenges. And I think this is a group of students that we really need to consider here because the decisions that we make are severely going to impact them, their family, their ability to be successful. That's it.
And Rachel, can you state your town, please?
Can you state, town? I currently live in South Burlington.
Thank you.
Rachel, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And I don't know if we have anyone else up. It is 11 o'clock. I just wanted to flag that for folks. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in public comment?
And we're happy to stay if there are more.
Dylan Degree. Dylan Degree, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to turn my video off. I may lose the feed here where I am working today. So I just wanted to echo the comments of multiple Islanders here on this call today. Just really, really thoughtful about how it affects a community that runs, from South Hero all the way to Alburg, and what the long-term impacts of that are. There was comments in our meeting the other night about, if we get absorbed into a larger district, we're just become a line item, and that's just an easy thing for a district to save money, is just to close us. So just taking time, thoughtful process, creating a plan, working the plan, and just being as clear as possible about all the rural communities, not just South Hero and Grand Isle and North Hero, but all these rural communities, as the lady stated before, is half the state. So it has large repercussions on not just some populations, but half the state. So thank you for your time. This is a daunting task. I appreciate what you guys are doing. All we continue to ask is, thoughtful planning and, and then following the plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan. Julie Mock, you are up. You have the floor.
Hi, thank you. My name is Julie Mack, and I currently live in Paulet, Vermont. I submitted a written letter to you all as well, so I won't take a lot of your time, but essentially we had asked for 3 factors to be considered, and that is a cost analysis of operating supervisory unions versus supervisory districts. Including in that you would seek testimony from superintendents with experience operating large SUs that have several member districts, as in regards to their willingness and ability to effectively operate within the complexity of a very large SU. We also ask that all of your models include continued access to independent schools in non-operating districts. And the last thing that we ask for is that you include time for districts to evaluate and refine any proposals that you would like to make. We believe that it's entirely possible that if forced to meet certain parameters that are outlined in Act 73, there are districts that would make friends and would probably come up with solutions that would be more sustainable and palatable to the public in general than a plan that you might come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Second, Kim? All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.